I stared at the screen. The words did not register at first. Ryan needed the seat. Ryan, the boyfriend she had been dating for 3 months. The one who did not have a job. The one I had explicitly said was not invited on the $15,500 luxury ski trip I had planned, booked and paid for. They had not forgotten me. They had replaced me. In my own car. On my own vacation. With the one person I despised. Before I tell you exactly how I turned their dream vacation into a frozen nightmare, drop a comment. Where are you listening from and what time is it for you right now? I want to see how far this story travels. 2.5 hours earlier, that kitchen had not been silent. It had been a factory line of my own making. At 4 o'clock in the morning, while the rest of the house was buried in sleep, I was standing at the counter slicing artisanal cheddar and folding prosciutto into neat rows for the road trip sandwiches. I had packed 4 thermal thermoses with hot cocoa, double-checked the tire pressure on the rented SUV in the driveway, and organized the luggage by weight distribution. I was running on 3 hours of sleep and a dangerous amount of caffeine. My name is Matilda. I am 28 years old and I work as a senior risk manager for a logistics firm. My entire career is built on anticipating problems before they happen and fixing them before anyone notices they exist. I am good at it. I am so good at it that I applied the same logic to my family. I thought if I just managed everything perfectly, if I paid the bills, planned the trips and smoothed over every jagged edge of their lives, they would finally see me as essential. I thought I was being a good daughter. But standing there in the dark, buttering bread for people who would not even wake up to say thank you, I was not a daughter. I was staff. I looked down at my hands, dry and cracked from the cold air and the constant work. I remembered slicing that cheese, thinking about how happy my brother Brandon would be when he saw I had bought his favorite brand. I thought about how my mother, Cynthia, would smile when she realized I had remembered her heated travel blanket. I was curating their happiness at the expense of my own exhaustion. But looking back at that moment now, I realize I was not making breakfast. I was preparing their last meal as my family. You might ask why I did it. Why I spent 5 years saving $15,500 just to spend it on people who treat me like a glorified assistant. It is not because I am stupid. It is because of a trap called normalized cruelty. It did not start with them leaving me behind. It started 20 years ago. My parents, Douglas and Cynthia, did not raise me to be a child. They raised me to be a utility. When I was 7, I was praised for being low maintenance. When I was 12, I was praised for being the adult in the room, while Victoria threw tantrums that sucked the air out of the house. They trained me to believe that my value was transactional. If I was not useful, I was not lovable. They normalized the idea that my needs were secondary to their comfort. It is a subtle, insidious kind of brainwashing. You do not realize you are in a cage because you are the one holding the key, terrified that if you unlock it and walk away you will be nothing. But that text message from Victoria shattered the cage. Ryan needed the seat. It was not just a change of plans. It was a statement of value. To them, my life savings, my months of planning, and my physical presence were worth less than the comfort of a boyfriend who had never held a job for longer than 6 weeks. They took the food I made, the car I rented, and the vacation I paid for, and they discarded me like a used wrapper. I did not cry. The time for crying was over. I walked into my home office and sat down at my desk. If they wanted to treat me like a business transaction that had gone sour, fine. I was about to show them exactly how a risk manager handles a liability. Most people in my position would be crying right now. They would be calling their mother, sobbing into the receiver, begging for an explanation, asking what they did wrong to deserve being abandoned on Christmas morning. But I do not operate on hope and I certainly do not operate on tears. I operate on data. I sat down at my desk, woke up my triple monitor setup, and opened a spreadsheet I had named Household Overhead. To my family, I was just Matilda, the girl who was good with details. The one who remembered birthdays and dentist appointments. But on that screen, I was the chief financial officer of a failing corporation called the Douglas family. I looked at the rows and columns, the stark black and red numbers that defined our relationships. It was a ledger of exploitation, carefully documented over a decade of silence. The $15,500 for this Aspen trip was not just a generous gift. It was my life savings. It was 5 years of overtime, of skipped lunches, of driving a 10-year-old sedan while Victoria drove a leased convertible I co-signed for. That money was supposed to be the down payment on a condo in the city, my escape plan. But 3 months ago my mother had sat me down, tears in her eyes, talking about how the family was drifting apart. She said we needed a reset. She said we needed a miracle. And like a fool, I engaged the family protocol. I liquidated my escape fund to buy them a week of luxury, thinking it would finally buy me a seat at the table. Instead, it bought a seat for Ryan. I scrolled down the spreadsheet, looking past the vacation costs. That was just the tip of the iceberg. I looked at the recurring monthly expenses. This house we were living in. My father liked to tell the neighbors it was his, that he let me live there to save money. The deed in my fireproof safe said otherwise. I bought it 3 years ago when his credit score tanked. I paid the mortgage. I paid the property taxes. I paid the insurance. I clicked on the Utilities and Services tab. The cell phone plan with unlimited 5G data that Victoria was currently using to upload selfies from the road. My name. The streaming services they would inevitably try to use tonight to watch Christmas movies in the ski lodge. My account. The high-speed internet, the car insurance for the vehicle they were currently driving, even the AAA roadside assistance membership. It was all me. They had left me behind because they thought I was optional. They thought I was just the busker who organized the itinerary. They forgot the most fundamental rule of logistics. You do not terminate the person who controls the infrastructure. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking in the silence of the empty house. Anger was not loud this time. It was clinical. It was the cold detachment of an auditor looking at a fraudulent set of books and deciding it was time to shut the company down. They wanted a vacation from me? They wanted to enjoy the luxury I paid for without the burden of my presence? I looked at the clock. They were probably 2 hours outside of Chicago, likely stopping for breakfast, laughing about how they had pulled one over on me. They had no idea that I was not just sitting here. I was initiating a foreclosure on their entire lifestyle. I reached for my phone. It was time to balance the books. The notification popped up at 8:45 in the morning. A Facebook tag from Victoria. I swiped it open and there they were huddled together at a highway rest stop, holding Starbucks cups I had not paid for, yet. Victoria was in the center, leaning into Ryan, beaming like she had just won the lottery. The caption read, "Finally on our way. Family moon in Aspen. No drama. No drama." The audacity was breathless. They were celebrating my absence while driving a car leased in my name to a vacation funded by my savings. I did not comment. I did not react with an angry emoji. I just switched apps to my contacts and found the number for the chalet's concierge, a man named Marcus who I had spent 2 weeks coordinating with to ensure every dietary restriction was met. He answered on the second ring. "Good morning, Ms. Matilda. We are eagerly awaiting your family's arrival." "Change of plans, Marcus," I said, my voice steady. "I need to cancel the entire reservation effective immediately." "Ms. Matilda, that is non-refundable at this late stage. The policy states." "I know the policy, but here is the situation, Marcus. The credit card on file. It is being used without authorization. I am flagging the transaction as fraudulent activity with my bank right now. If you check them in, the chargeback will hit your system before they even unpack their bags. I am trying to save you the administrative headache." I did not explain the family dynamics. I did not tell him about the sandwiches or the betrayal. I spoke the universal language of business. Liability. "I see," Marcus said, his tone shifting instantly from hospitable to guarded. "I will cancel the booking and alert the front desk to deny entry. We cannot accept a check-in with a compromised payment method." "Thank you, Marcus. One more thing. When they arrive, please tell them the cardholder reported the theft personally." I hung up. Step 1 complete. They were now driving 6 hours toward a closed door. But I was not finished with the infrastructure. I opened my smart home app. It was a dashboard of control I usually used to make sure the house was warm for them when they returned from errands. Now it was a weapon. I tapped on the thermostat icon. The house was currently a cozy 72 degrees. I dragged my finger down the digital dial. 70, 60, 50. I stopped at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Just enough to keep the pipes from bursting, but cold enough to make the indoors feel like a meat locker. Next, the connectivity. I accessed the router settings. I saw the list of connected devices. Dad's iPad, Mom's iPhone, Victoria's laptop. I selected block all. Then I reset the master Wi-Fi password. I typed it in slowly, savoring every keystroke. Ryan pays rent now. Finally, the smart locks. I engaged lockdown mode. This feature was designed for long vacations, disabling all user codes except the master admin, me. My father's code? Disabled. My mother's? Gone. The only way into this house now was through me or through a wall. I set the phone down on the desk. The silence in the house deepened. I heard the furnace click off, the hum of the forced air dying away. The temperature would drop slowly, degree by degree, matching the chill in my own veins. I imagined them on the highway, laughing, listening to music, completely unaware that they were currently homeless, digitally erased, and driving into a blizzard of consequences. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a fresh cup of coffee. I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic. It was going to get cold in here, but for the first time in my life the cold did not bother me. I was the one controlling the weather. The silence lasted for exactly 6 hours. Inside the house, the temperature had dropped to a crisp 55 degrees. I was wearing a thick wool sweater, sitting in the living room with the blinds drawn, watching the security feed on my tablet. I saw them before I heard them. The rented SUV swerved into the driveway, skidding slightly on the ice I had not bothered to salt. They did not look like a family returning from a failed vacation. They looked like a pack of wolves that had been starved. The car doors flew open. My mother, Cynthia, stumbled out first, her face a mask of smeared makeup and disbelief. Victoria followed, shivering in a thin designer coat, her phone already pressed to her ear, likely screaming at some poor customer service agent. But it was my father, Douglas, who drew my attention. He did not go to the front door. He went straight to the garage keypad. I watched on the screen as he punched in his code. Beep. 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 Buzz. Denied. He punched it again harder. Denied. He kicked the door, a primal violent thud that vibrated through the floorboards. Then he walked around to the side yard, grabbed a rusted crowbar from the garden shed, the one lock I had not digitized, and marched toward the front porch. He did not knock. He slammed the metal bar against the wood of the front door. Matilda, open this door right now or I will take it off the hinges. I did not move. I sat on the couch, sipping my tea, watching the grain of the wood shudder with each blow. It was terrifying, yes. But it was also validating. This was who he was. This was not the jovial father he played at church barbecues. This was the tyrant who emerged whenever he lost control. The noise drew neighbors. Porch lights flicked on as Mrs. Higgins and two others stepped outside. Douglas saw the audience and instantly transformed. The crowbar dropped. His rage collapsed into panic. Please call 911, he cried. My daughter's having a psychotic break. She locked us out, and my heart medication is inside. My mother joined in, sobbing on cue, begging him to break the door down and save me. Sympathy replaced suspicion on Mrs. Higgins' face. To them, I wasn't defending my home. I was the unstable daughter who'd snapped. Douglas glanced at the doorbell camera and winked. He dialed the police. Not a locksmith. Wellness check. I had the deeds, but he had the narrative. If the police broke in, they'd see exactly what he wanted. A woman alone in a dark house. But Douglas forgot one thing. We weren't playing an emotional game. We were in a legal one. When the squad car arrived, he performed flawlessly, the distraught father claiming tenant rights. An officer pounded on the door, warning me I couldn't lock out a resident without a court order. He doesn't live here, I said calmly, and handed over a notarized affidavit of non-residency Douglas himself had signed months earlier to qualify for tax benefits. Under oath, he had declared he was only a guest. The officer read it, then looked at him. So either you lied to the state, or you're lying to me now. Douglas froze. Admitting residency meant fraud. Denying it meant no right to enter. The choice was made for him. He broke the lock and threatened me, I said. I want to press charges. The officer cuffed him for attempted burglary and property damage. As they led him away, my siblings watched silently from their SUV, then fled. When the lights vanished, the house fell quiet. Not empty, cleansed. I deleted the family group chat, listed their furniture for free, and let the cold air wash the house clean. Blood isn't a contract. Family is behavior. I didn't just change the locks. I reclaimed my life.